So we hadn't gotten the chance to talk about all of the details for the Junior Huskies Academy. What are some of the things that you're like looking to get out of this, or for these athletes to get out of it?
Well, I think it starts with understanding the safety of the sport.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people quite understand that this is a very safe sport, and if coached properly, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It really is that. It's kind of that simple, and then from there, obviously, it's about skill development. Positionally, it's about learning the game better because a lot of kids go in and they go, I want to be a quarterback or I want to be, but however you are at 12 does not mean that's how old you're going to be at 20.
Right.
And your path to understanding and developing in the game could go through many different
Positions, yeah, all
all
that.
of those things. And I think what we do is we're going to provide an opportunity to kind of dabble in a bit of those, and then as the camp goes on, you're going to find out where you actually belong.
Yeah, like I'll go back to even the first point about the safety. I mean, I think when that whole CTE movie came out, that's when it's really started hitting things. But people don't talk about other sports like cheerleading, soccer,
Exactly.
hockey. All these things where concussions are actually more prone to happen there than it is in football.
You're absolutely
right. And it's one of those things like, when I've had parents ask me about that kind of stuff, and I say, well, at least in football, you're fully protected with equipment, right? But then it comes into the safety aspect, right? So
exactly, and there's so many good things out there, but there's not a lot of people that actually know all these things. And I think that's where you come into play, and you're going to be able to sort of highlight to these kids the safety aspect and to the parents.
Yeah.
I mean, football it's an incredible game, and it's the best team game in the world. But sometimes that's lost because people don't get by that first initial, oh, it's not safe. Actually, it's really safe and really fun.
Yeah, and I think it becomes even more fun when you actually, as you mentioned, understand the game. And this is where, like, we've chatted about this a little bit before, where you look at these other sports that are skill-based sports. If you can dribble, you can pass, and you can shoot, you're probably going to be pretty good in basketball, right? If you can skate and you can, handle the stick or the puck, probably going to be pretty good in hockey. Football isn't such a skill-based sport. You have to build skills, but like if you have the best arm in the world, it means nothing if you can't hit an open receiver, right?
Exactly.
So like you can have the skills, but like the understanding of the game is what's going to actually separate you to be a better player. And I like the approach that we're doing now, which is, I think sometimes it's a bit monotonous, in the sense of always talking about being safe and going through contact and this and that. But it's also really important because you never know what somebody else was taught. You also don't know the level that they're coming in at. Some of them maybe played provincial, some of them played high school, some never played at all, right? And everything in between. So the approach we're taking is a scaffolding approach where we, the first few blocks are going to be safe contact, whether it's tackling, blocking, block destruction, and being able to absorb a hit as a ball carrier too, right? So when you look at football is blocking. It is getting off blocks.
Yeah.
It's tackling. And in order to tackle, you got to be able to run the ball because somebody's got to tackle you, right? So being able to put all of that into, the first, let's say, building blocks of the program where everybody's going to be able to experience those things and understand how to do those things properly goes back into your point too of, out here we see, if you're an athlete and you're a little bit bigger than everybody else on your team, here you're probably playing O-line or D-line.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to high school or university, you might actually be a receiver or a running back or, those kind of things. But, and it's something we talk about at the university level with our receivers, specials.
Absolutely.
Which is blocking, tackling, getting off blocks, all those kind of things, right?
It's the same thing. And it's interesting you bring that up because, people go, well, my kid is 16 and, they're an elite football player. Well, we coach supposedly elite football players in university, and we everyday drills. We work on those same things, our eddies, and you it's the only way you're gonna get better.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, but it always falls back on blocking, tackling, getting off blocks,
running the ball.
Running the ball. That's the game.
Yeah. So we'll go through what we have here. So again, the first couple blocks we have, we have the blocking and block destruction, where we go through the safe contact and understanding it. The block progression at first, firing the hips, shooting the hands, stepping and striking, stalking and doubling climbing. Those are essentially, without giving the terminology to some of those blocks. For example, like a double and climb. If we're in a zone scheme, we got a single, double, or triple, or if it's backside of A, B, or C. But the essence of it is being able to double,
yes,
drive that defender back, displace them, and then move on to the next 100%. Defender, right?
It's the basis of all offensive line play.
But also now, that's also the basis of receivers.
Absolutely it is.
We're blocking downfield in the run game.
Yes.
Do we take two? Do we take, most dangerous player first and then climb to the next player? Also goes into specials, right? So like it goes into everything. And then obviously, even if you're on the defensive side of the ball, you get an interception, you pick up a fumble, you're now going to be in that position to block.
Absolutely.
So, and then off of that, we key off of block progression and we go into the block destruction, showing how to engage and how to anchor a gap. What is a gap? What is anchoring? Why do we anchor? What's the difference between a run rush and a pass rush? And then giving some get off moves, a rip, a swim, a chop and pin, just something that they could add into their toolbox.
You've mentioned something that I think is vital in all of this, is that you're gonna learn proper terminology.
Yes.
And we're gonna speak in proper terminology that every player on the field, be it 6 years old or 18 years old, are all gonna understand like what a gap is.
Right.
Because that is the essence, again, of the game. If you don't understand what a gap is, how are you going to block properly? How are you going to run? All of those things.
Yeah. So, and then we'll have concepts too, where we go offensive and defensive team concept, where we get into kind of like a walkthrough period.
Yeah.
Where we go through, okay, here's, in this example, we have an inside zone, and the types of zones you have a read, you have a split zone, and then you can have RPO off of that. We're throwing in the terminology on the types of blocks used there, also with the receivers. But now then on the defensive side of the ball, we get into alignment, formation adjustments, the gaps, the shades of techniques, fronts, run fitting, force, secondary force, right?
Yes.
All in, a segment, again, to shape their frame of mind as to like what's happening, not just that a bunch of people are moving, right? Now we transition again into ball skills. So we go catching and ball security and then ball disruption. We have that kind of same scaffolding approach. We go into the team concepts after that. We get back into the safe contact with tackling and being a playmaker. So some of this is going to essentially almost look like a judo class on the field. You got a bunch of combat lines, people standing there looking like a scarecrow, hitting the gator roll and, learning how to absorb that when you're falling and all the things. And also, disrupting the ball and also being a ball carrier, because that's also important. Like, okay, once I have this piece of leather, what do I do with it? How do I make people miss, or how do I run through contact? And then if I am being tackled, how do I fall with it? How do I protect myself with that, right?
Well, I think it's a skill that is not emphasized because maybe they're the fastest or the biggest. And so they're just thrown out there to be the ball carrier. But hey, we're going to teach you, evasive moves, how to get away. And to your point, if I'm getting tackled, how can I finish that extra yard forward?
Safely. So now from there, that's more the overall kind of like team concepts. Now we'll start getting into like individuals and movements. We have a fundamental circuit with mostly specials type of blocking. Because I think it's applicable to whether you're on offense or defense. Like you're going to need it. And unfortunately, as a Canadian, you got to learn how to play specials if you want to go past university.
That is the number one thing that every CFL scout calls me and asks me. Can they play special teams? Where can they play? Can they block? Can they play on punt? Can they play in punt return?
Right. And we know that everybody's not a returner, so
exactly,
there's space for you, right? So we'll go through those, and then everybody will go through defensive eds, so they get a taste of that. Everybody will go through offensive eds, and this is more or less a movement of the edge. Obviously,
Yes.
not necessarily position specific at this moment, but just understanding either side of the ball.
Yes.
And then after that, now we get into the start compete periods where we go through our warm up, we go through our fundamental circuit, then we branch off into our offensive eds and indies. So
Yes.
now we get position specific. We build that knowledge base and that skill set for O and D, and then we get a compete period. This may not be politically correct to say this, but I call this one a fat drill, the Force Alley Trail. Again, it's a specials drill, but it's also tackling. It's also being able to run through people trying to tackle you, right? And then we have another compete period where we go with our one-on-ones with our, our LPRs, our live pass rushes, and our receivers and DBs.
Yeah. Which again goes back to this is, as you can see, this is a progression.
Right.
And one of the differences between what you're going to get in this camp compared to what you get in season is, in season you're gearing up to play a game. Mm-hmm. And so everything leads towards the game. Systems become much more prevalent than skill development and individual work. What we're getting here is we're slowly getting to that point before we, as you can see in week 6, we start to put things together.
Yeah, and that's exactly where we're at. Now we're getting into more compete periods. We still have a fundy circuit. We go with our eds. Now we go with pass and run, like coverage and fits install. So we're teaching, as a linebacker or a defensive back, what are my reads? How do I identify that it's a run or pass? I would say 90% of teams are in shotgun.
Yes.
And you can identify as a defender if it's a run or pass before the quarterback even gets the ball.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So being able to explain that and share that and show, and then if you have a gap responsibility, that gap moves when the gap moves, but you got to move with it, right? And how to fit, how to get into coverage. Now we go back into other compete periods. Now we do more groupings where we have Skelly, and then the O and D line have the live pass rush, and then we transition to inside run where the perimeter players will do one-on-ones. We have scout cards with them, so that way we can not only reinforce what we've taught, but also give them a visual cue and hopefully speed that process up with them. And then we move into week 7 and week 8. We get along the same lines where we're now, again, more groupings with, we still have our indies. We go into inside run. We go into Skelly. We have team compete periods. Then we get an install because now we want to finish off this entire program with a controlled scrimmage.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Being able to place players in positions that they do play or otherwise would not have the opportunity to play, where they get to explore that option and see, hey, maybe I am good at playing on the other side of the ball or at a different position. But now they get to apply what they've learned throughout this program in a game-like situation.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. And when you think about the time, it seems like a long time. These periods and these practices go so fast.
Yep.
And hopefully at the end of it, they can walk off the field going, "Wow, I'm a better player."
Right.
And that's a goal.
And a smarter player.
And a smarter. And I think, well, you just nailed it. Again, becoming a smarter football player. All the terminology you just used will soon, we hope, after 9 weeks, be second nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when we look at the first down program, the little ones, I find this really cool. And if I use a real life example with Jackson and like how he's progressed through football, he's 6 now. He can watch an entire football game and also follow it. Right. And there's times, obviously, even during the season where, I've shared with you after the game messages that he says, and he's like, "Coach, put me in. I can do that." But it's cool that he can follow it. And I look at some of the things that we've done with him, or the questions that he asked. We also at BATLX, we go into different schools and we teach football programming, and we use this kind of model to build it. So when we look at the flag side of things for the younger athletes, it's an introduction into football with the hopes and efforts to transition them into football as they continue to grow, but being able to use flag as a opportunity to learn some skill sets, right?
Definitely. I like the point that you were saying about the young guys and girls, when they're out there, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
And it's just so passionate with them. And it's about, not just about learning all of the skills of playing football, but it's also about having fun.
Yeah.
Just enjoying being on the field. Like, hey, parents, I want to do this more. This was fun. And hopefully that this first down will touch on that so that they can want to come back and go farther. And when is their tackle? When can I take the next steps moving forward?
Right. So in this, the premise in mind, not only of building the knowledge base of football and the ebbs and flows of the game, but also understanding their age bracket and physical literacy.
Yes.
Which I think is extremely important.
You're right.
With teamwork, camaraderie, and understanding how to navigate if they lost a competition, if they won a competition, right? And also how to play with other people, right? So, we started with, we have a drill called Heisman. It's a flag grab. They're in a box, and it's just a rat race, everybody for themselves. You're just trying to collect as many flags as you can. It's the most tiring thing in the world. But it's so much fun. Like, it really is. So we get into that, essentially teaching them how to have spatial awareness, who's around them, who's near them, who can pull their flag, but also putting them in a position where they're in that athletic stance that we talk about so much, no matter what position we're at.
Exactly. Or sport.
Yeah, sport period, right? Like, and then, also, again, just the understanding of like, I need to grab a flag, I'm in a perfect position, but I also need to avoid my flag being grabbed, right? So they get a lot of movement in that. Then we do one called Touchdown Island. It's similar to like what a lot of kids play, like Yoshi Island sort of deal. Then we have Battle Ball. That's a wordplay off of BATLX. It's kind of like an ultimate frisbee sort of deal. In Florida, we call it Gator Ball. And then they have mini games, right? And then we move from that. So now we get into other ball skills. So we teach them about snapping, passing, and running. We have a snap leap, which is essentially like a snap and relay race. We get into like a yak attack. It's like teaching them how to have an exchange, a handoff exchange, the proper way in football, but also having obstacles in front of them and maneuvering around them, but in a relay. So there's always competition built in there. Then we have a fireball, which is like a hot potato. And when we blow the whistle, whoever has the ball is now going to have to do a celebration.
Right.
I think it's fun for them to, dance and have fun. And like, ultimately it's a game, and we know that it should be fun for them, right? Move into more things. So now we have like anticipation, understanding how to throw receivers open or ball catches open, and also zone coverage. So on the zone side, I think sometimes this is like the hardest part to not necessarily teach, but for athletes to understand. Okay, well, what is zone and what is man? Right? Well, if I'm in zone, you have an area that you need to protect or cover, and you absorb whoever comes into that area, right? So, we have a game we call hot spots, and we teach them, that they have this area, and then once a player gets them and has the ball, now they can go. But also within that hot spots, now it's teaching whoever the quarterback or ball thrower would be how to anticipate and find those holes in the defense. Then we get into coverages, how to cover, how to backpedal, how to maneuver going backwards and then coming forward.
Which is not a common skill.
No, it's not.
No. There's not a lot of sports that you say, okay, we got to run fast backwards.
Real fast backwards while somebody's coming at you full speed, right?
Exactly.
And then we get a coverage, and it's tackling, but it's not tackling because it's flag. But just teaching them how to get in that position, the same position we would get in football as we're approaching the tackle, same leg, same shoulder, running through the back hip of the ball carrier. It's the exact same in flag, except now you're just grabbing the flag, right? But explaining and teaching them the angles, how to eat the grass, how to kill the angles from the offensive player, those sort of things. Then we get into some one-on-ones, a little bit more compete, some two-on-twos, and then from there, for the rest of the program, now we get into like mini tournaments. So at this point, they would understand like, what the line of scrimmage is, who needs to be on what side of the ball, when they should go, if it's a completion, that there's a new line of scrimmage, if there's an incompletion, that you reset back to that line of scrimmage, how many tries, downs you get in order to get a new set of downs or a touchdown and points awarded and all those things. So, again, just being able to help them understand how the game flow, right? And then as they progress from there, now it's like, once they have that, then it's like, okay, now we get into routes and concepts and you start growing that way. So that's what we have, for first down, tackle intro, tackle prospects, and tackle elite. I'm really excited about it.
So am I. I'm excited that we're together doing it because I think we both bring different and similar perspectives on what we're trying to do. And I think number one, we just want more people playing.
Yeah, and the right way.
And the right way, and a safe way.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, I believe that's important. I can't comprehend how you can have fun doing something you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and again, it becomes very boring, uninteresting because you're not really sure what you're doing. But the minute you start to go, oh, light bulb moments. Oh, that means that. I can do this. I'm going to run here. I caught this ball. Wow. The confidence in them goes up and their want and will to continue to play just
skyrocket. And, I like that you mentioned confidence because this is something that I really feel will help develop their confidence going into the season, and that trajectory of helping them through their football journey. And also with the coaches that we have, I think the players that we have selected are good people, and they understand and they understand the responsibility of being able to work with these young athletes, and ultimately being a person that these athletes can lean on and communicate with and has their best interests at heart. So I'm really excited even for the players that we have coaching.
Yeah, and they're excited.
Yeah, and they're excited. Yeah, I just saw a couple of guys on my way in, and they were like, "Coach, man, like April 11th is coming. Like I'm ready to go. Like So, and that excites me too to know that they're excited about it. Right? Like this is something that I know that on a more personal level, like we really care about people, and football just happens to be our connection to, or a vehicle to connect with them. Right? So, we want people to have fun playing this sport that we love, and we want people to learn more about the sport so they can have more fun doing it
and be excited. And we want the parents to come out and watch, see what we're happening, see what we're doing, see how their son or daughter is developing and growing as a football player. I think the parents are going to be very shocked. It's very different sport than other sports, and if they have not been involved in football before or only on a minimal level, I think they're going to be pretty excited to come out and see what we have.
Yeah, me too. All right, let's make some magic happen.
Awesome.